Welcome to this week of Brian Seglas videos. Oj, that was in English.
That was in English.
Välkommen till den här veckans videos av Brian Seglas. There we go. I did it.
In this week's episode, we're going to be CNC cutting the bulkheads, doing some overhead glass. I'm going to share the secret that I learned for that, as well as spending some time in Sweden. I'm Brian. Join the adventures as I share what I learned restoring a hurricane-damaged catamaran with the dream to sail the world. Times like this, I wish this boat wasn't so well put together. So I'm removing the tabbing from here that will tab to the new plywood section of the bulkhead when I put it in. And even though they just use polyester, because I know I'm always hard on polyester, these things, it's tough to get out. I'll show you here in a second. But I'll tell you though, they're plenty strong. The bulkhead completely removed. This boat still pretty much holds its shape. I put a jack here to give it a little bit extra bracing and cranked it up, but really it wasn't. I put my laser down here and checked it the best I could, and it's certainly within the measurements of the boat. I like to do really big contiguous pieces of fiberglass, and so the only way to do that, you can't really wet it out the whole piece, and that was one of my mistakes before, and this is one of the things that helped me do overhead glass. What I do is I put up the section where I want, and then I'll brace it up to hold the cloth that I'm not working on, and then I'll wet it out in position and just do section by section and section. The only secret that I found to doing good fiberglass work is patience, right? It takes a long time, and by doing it in these smaller sections, you can take more time to get it down because you need to squeegee and squeegee and squeegee and get every bit of extra resin and every air bubble out if you want that glass to turn out great. And so that's what I do, and I do this in small sections. And when we do the overhead, I found, and this was the same technique that I used, is just do it in small sections. So why don't I use peel ply? I actually have an entire roll of peel ply. I have tons of it. I don't really use it because it's hard when you're doing it section by section to put the peel ply on, because by the time you get to the end section, the beginning is already completely dry, and so you can't put the peel ply on. The other thing that I found is I don't really need it. If you spend the time to squeegee it out and squeegee it really well, you end up with a perfectly smooth surface with no excess resin anyway. All right, time to do the glass on this chain plate where we're tying in to the rest of the hull. I've got the lamination schedule from the factory in Espanol, but it's no problem to read it. So I just need to figure out what I need to put here so that I can tie this back in and blend it in so that we make sure that this chain plate is going to be solid. But you can see, it's funny they knock on stuff. It's plenty strong. I mean, it sounds good even though it's not got all the layers. But yeah. So let me get working on that. Down here, the chain plate goes here, and then this is where I tied in this chain plate, and you can see I've got multiple layers, and this is 090 cloth, so biaxial 0 by 90, and so that's what the factory specified for this. And I went a little bit oversized because I didn't want to just end it here. You can kind of see where the seam is. I wanted to really tie this into the new structure good, and so I come all the way back to here, but my main layers with the 090 are to here, all the way down, following the factory specs, just a little oversized to tie it in better. And this is probably my finest glass work. I mean, there is super high glass to resin ratio here. There is no extra resin in any of this, and there is no air bubbles. Even, I mean, not even little micro ones, where, especially where these corners come in. These are the ones that are hard to do. So I'm starting to get it. I feel a little more confident in my work, and not that I did shoddy work before, but I feel like I'm kind of getting the hang of it and able to do it. So now, this is where I messed up trying to get the first overhead glass, and I don't know if you saw that huge piece I did over there. I kind of got the system down, so I feel pretty confident I can get this piece fixed back to about here. So I'm just going to grind a little more of this off, start filling, and get that done today. When doing overhead, I use the same technique as I use in the other sections with doing smaller sections at a time. This also helps it stick better. The first thing I add is I add a thickened epoxy mixed with aerosol or Cabosil or fumed silica to help it stick better. I put that up first. Then I use a higher viscosity or a thicker resin, not by adding aerosol, but actually a thicker resin. And I use that to wet out the cloth. And it's harder to wet out the cloth. And then I wet it out, not as heavy as I normally would, but once I put it up into place, then I'll continue to wet it out and squeegee it out. The only downside of this is I have ended up with so much resin in my hair, all over myself, because as I'm wetting it out in place, all that stuff, it just drips right on top of me. And so I have been so covered with resin from this whole process. It's just crazy. There we go. No air bubbles. Everything is bonded tight. It's a lot of work and it's so hot in here, but I think it turned out good. Certainly much better than the first effort or the second effort. I guess this is the third effort. Third time's the charm. With small pieces that are manageable, I'll still follow the process and wet it out on the table before I bring it up. But this piece here, this is probably about as big of a piece as I dare do by myself, wetting it out on the table without breaking it down into sections. And you can see I put it up and it goes fairly well, but I have to still prop it up and hold it up with different things to get it to stay up. And then again, just using that higher viscosity or the thicker resin just helps it to stick on those vertical surfaces as we come around. This boat has never been a bigger mess. Also, has never been closer to getting all the fiberglass done. So, having this part all repaired up there with all my layers of glass on the front, I just have to do the layers of glass here. Over here in the dash area, I have now put all the layers on the back of this. Time to get this boat cleaned up. I don't have all that much grinding to do left. Maybe the ceiling and, I mean, it'll sure get messy, but I gotta get this cleaned up. So here's the first load. This is heavy too. The first load of dust out of here. So I wonder how many more of those I'm gonna get from this. I think there's gonna be a lot. I know there's a lot of crap down in that hole. Getting ready to try cutting the first section of bulkhead. So it's always a little nervous with a new router setup and this. So hopefully it goes good. Let's give it a shot. That's pretty satisfying. This piece came right up. All right, so I'm probably do a little bit of adjustment to my depth, a little bit of adjustment to my speed, and then we'll cut out the other not test sections, but the other sections I need, and then I'll finally cut the final bulkhead out of the whole thing. Well, just like that, I've got all these pieces cut out. These will go on the ceiling where it's damaged. With this CNC machine, because it's a pretty light duty CNC, I have to run it really slow. So to cut out a piece like this, it takes 45 minutes to an hour, sometimes an hour and a half to fully cut a full 4x8 sheet. Depends on how many cuts there are in it. Generally with plywood, I'll run 2 passes, each one at half depth. This is always the exciting part. is after it's done, taking off the screws, pulling it out, and seeing how it fits. And there's the bulkhead. Looks pretty good. Let's see how this piece is honest. Let's see how this part lines up. No! Oh, just kidding. Hey, check that out. Check out that puzzle joint. Isn't this cool? Yeah, so tomorrow I'll cut the other bulkheads and we'll be able to put it together like one giant bulkhead. They still have to be scribed. You know, these corners aren't exactly where they need to be, so I'm sure I'll have to do a little cutting, you know, down here and there and along there to make it fit in perfectly. But overall, the bulk of the bulkhead, can I say that? The bulk of the bulkhead will be all lined up, the doors and the windows, everything in the right spot. So it's kind of late now. I think it's after 9. And I want to annoy my neighbors. I already texted one of my neighbors. So Rob, thank you. Either for not responding or for, because I assume that's an okay, because I'm like, oh, it's kind of late. I need 40 minutes. Can you hear my router at all? I don't know if they can hear it with the garage door. I can hear it outside, but I don't think they can hear it in their house. But it's pretty late, so I will cut the other bulkheads out tomorrow morning, and we'll get them installed. That's going to be exciting. It's important when you put the plywood into the CNC that we get it lined up perfectly. So I've got this little line that I drew with a pen, and I used the CNC to draw that line right at the, it actually drew a 4x8 sheet. And so what that does is that allows me to line this up, and then I know that when it gets over there, the plywood won't be out askew because this line is square with the CNC machine. So I just gotta line everything up, looking down here. And once I have it in the right position, then I put some screws in it. I usually don't use too many screws because I don't need to. Part of the reason, well, there's a bunch of reasons, but so I just put a couple screws in to hold it so it doesn't slide out of place. It's very important that you figure out where to put the screws so that it doesn't hit the router head, won't hit it when it goes. Otherwise, you're going to have some problems. So I just write it down. I look at the thing. I measured off of the grid on the software, and then I write down a couple notes. Okay, this is where I think I should put it. And then I screw them in there once I get it lined up. So, you know, I said, don't hit the screw. Well, look at this one. I got a little close. It was right there. I nicked the end of it. I don't know if you can see that. So when I nicked the end of it, it caused this belt here to skip a cog. And then these were on the second pass, when it was routing the puzzle joints, they were a little bit off. Just like a 1/16 of an inch or something. And so what I did is I just pushed the router really hard, got it to skip back, and so then the second pass, it was in the right position, and so it had to do a full cut, which at that speed it was able to do, and did a full cut. And so it's a little bit, the puzzle joints, there might be a tiny gap, but I'm not super worried about that, but at least they'll fit. So hopefully they'll fit. All right, now's the time. Cross your fingers. Hope all these things will actually fit together. We'll see how it works. Fits like a glove. I don't know why they say fits like a glove. Gloves never fit me because my pinky is too short, but whatever. Yeah, tight fit. Just enough gap for a little bit of glue. Holds everything in place. It'll be good. Now I still got to rescribe these lines here because of course the hole will be different across basically the whole outside. So that'll get actually changed a little bit, but overall it's going to be awesome. Just after midnight. Well, it's like almost 12:30. But look at this. So I'm working on dry fitting these bulkheads. And they're fitting. I've been just trimming the edges to get it to fit. It's still a pretty tight fit. I gotta trim a little bit more here and there and whatever, but it's gonna totally work. This is gonna be great. It's a little bowed here because I've still got it a little too tight around some of the edges, so I've got to take the relief out so that it'll sit straight. But yeah, this is gonna work. I'm excited. Yeah, I wasn't sure how this is gonna turn out, but it looks like it turned out pretty good. So yeah, I'll come back tomorrow and try to get this these in here. I need to fabricate a couple pieces to go in here and finish this up and grind. Well, it's all glass, but I need to clean it up and then glass in the new pieces that are kind of spacers in there. Build some spacers for here, and we should be good. I really want to get these bulkheads in, but it's a bit fiddly. So I scarfed this joint back here, and part of the issue with the plywood is it's good to scarf plywood. You don't have to do it with foam core, despite what some people say, just based off of engineering. But it's good to scarf plywood, but it's probably not necessarily, because I'm going to also put fiberglass over all my seams on this to reinforce it, because I'm going to veneer it differently than the original boat. But this one turned out a little bit better. It's kind of hard to scarf the one that's in the boat, but you know, I did it with my belt sander, and you know it's right when you see the different grains all the same width and straight. So let's get these installed. At least dry fit for the 15,000th time. Beauty of using the CNC to cut stuff like this. So this just came right off the plans. So I'm a little bit nervous to show what I'm working on, or well, actually what the boat looks like right now, because I might lose half my subscribers who have OCD, because it's like the worst it's ever been. And everybody thinks, oh, it can't get any worse. Oh, it can get worse. Okay, so don't look at the mess. Anyway, but you can look at this glasswork. I just put this piece up here, and it turned out great. I've just glued this piece on. I'm going to come back and grind this and ferre this and put another strip on there. And then that's the main glass I need in order to start putting the bulkheads in. This piece here that I CNC cut to replace the other piece fits right here. So I just need to finish shaping this guy and get it in position. Ooh, actually it fits pretty good. Wrapping it up for today. I got the laminate on both sides of that and on that. Those guys are going to go fit right in here behind this bulkhead. So I have to get those done. I got this bulkhead ground back, so that's ready to fix, and then attached at the bottom, as well as put another layer of glass up there on the top. So making some progress. There were a few more pieces of glass that I had to put in there that I would lose access to, or at least wouldn't have good access to once I got that spacer in there. So I added that. And here again, I just used the thicker viscosity resin to help get that to stick. But you find smaller pieces will tend to stick up there pretty well. This is also part of the reason that I had to cut my hair, because that epoxy just drips all over me, and I just get totally covered with epoxy. It seems endless, all these little things that you have to do to get the bulkhead in. You have the bulkhead ready to go, and I just want to mount it, but I got to get all these other little pieces in that I'm going to lose access to, and that's the pain. And then one more piece of glass in, and then up with the spacer. I spent way too much time screwing around with the power and the air conditioner to get that going better today, but then it still doesn't work that good. But at least I'll have more power shortly. I'm short one extension cord. This guy is epoxied in. And the way I have it braced up, in order to get it set flat, I had to throw some tools on it for some extra weight, but it's pretty flat now. And that whole corner and side where this attached has all been glassed. So I got that glassed and then shoved this up there. So should be good. I think we're getting close to doing the bulkhead. And then we're back to endless dry fitting and trimming to get these pieces to fit just right. Now you want a little bit of space around the bulkheads to hold that glue. You don't want a big gap, but you want a little space so that it's not pushing on the hole and it has room to flex. So that's what just takes endless fitting and dry fitting and then back and again and again and again. Getting pretty close to getting the bulkhead in. This guy down here. It's gonna be pretty good where it's tapered there. I have this corner here to deal with though. I don't want to just have a hard joint here on this corner because that's kind of a high stress area. So they had a doubler there, so I'm going to run that doubler, but I'm going to splice it in back here, run the doubler, and then run another piece, and I'll probably do it with a lot of glass in there just to kind of give this whole section here some strength. I cut these recycled teak. They just use a whole bunch of filler putty in here, but I don't want to do that. I'm going to use glass and wood. Glass over this wood, so this will fit in there and give it the proper spacing. Then out comes the laser, and I use the laser to get it in plumb because half of the bulkhead was there, and so I lined that laser up to get the plane of that existing bulkhead, and then I shot that plane across and then marked it on the wall, both on the floor and the top, all the way around. And so when I go to glue the bulkhead in, it was perfectly square, and I had all the spacers that go back behind correct. Now finally, the long-awaited time to actually get the bulkheads installed. And so I'll mixing up a lot of thickened resin to glue the bulkhead in and put it on all the spacers, and then epoxy in all of the puzzle joints, and then I packed the puzzle joints full with any gaps that I could get in there, so that everything was good, and then used a bunch of spacers and props to line the thing up and get it solid in place. And I wanted to get this thing done because I sort of had an impromptu trip to Sweden planned. And so being as I was out of work and things just lined up, my daughter wanted to see her friend in Sweden, and my mom and sister live in Sweden, and so I wanted to see there. I wanted to take my other daughter to meet her cousins. And so we got this trip lined up. And so I needed to get this bulkhead done so that I could get out of there and leave knowing the boat was in a good spot. Then it was off to Sweden for 2 weeks for fun, games, and family. Well, not all fun, as you'll see. How nice is this? I have a bulkhead. I've owned a lot of bikes. I've always wanted to own a Harley. Never have, but I've never even rid one. But today, I had to ride this Harley, thanks to my brother-in-law, Thomas. He's got a collection of awesome bikes. A couple Ducatis, Harley, awesome. Then with my daughter and her friend, my other daughter and my mom, we take a tour of some different old places in Sweden, looking at the old streets. We picked some strawberries. My youngest daughter was very excited about that. But my older daughter and her friend had a good time too. Favorite pizza is ham and pineapple. And some people say that doesn't belong together. But listen to this pizza.
This pizza has Nutella, ham, pineapple, peanuts, bananas, and curry.
Weird. And then a trip to a zoo and theme park with my youngest and 2 of her cousins.
I'm usually on. Are we being filmed? Oh no, we're gonna get murdered by that crow. It's a murder. A flock of crows is actually called a murder. So. How do you know these stuff? So cute.
But a trip to Sweden wouldn't be complete without helping my mom work on her house. So I helped finish the siding the top half that needed a lift, as well as paint it. But we can't have all play and no work. So I am back hard at work on the boat. I've got tons of the interior done. I'm really excited to show it to you on the next episode. So be sure to like, subscribe, leave me a comment if you can. And until next time, I will see you later.